Dylan Gabriel may have gotten the snaps, but it's Shedeur Sanders everyone's still talking about, and not for the right reasons. As Cleveland secured a late-game lead over Miami, all eyes turned to the sideline, where Sanders remained benched despite the perfect conditions for experience building. To many insiders, this wasn't just a tactical misfire. It was a coaching philosophy laid.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Stefanski's insistence on preserving control, avoiding headlines, or perhaps protecting his ego, is starting to eclipse his duty to develop talent. It's no longer a mystery why fans and analysts alike are fed up, with whispers of locker room divides and other franchises expressing interest in Sanders. This isn't just internal drama. It's a franchise-altering standoff. The Browns are the breaking point. Continue down a path of veteran favoritism and strategic caution, or risk losing both their young star and the foundation of team trust. What started as a quarterback decision now feels like a referendum on leadership itself. The Cleveland Browns are no strangers to chaos, but this time, they've outdone themselves. Shedeur Sanders, one of the most intriguing young quarterbacks on the roster, was benched, again, but not just during any game, during a pivotal matchup against the Miami Dolphins. A game where, by all accounts, the Browns could have used a spark. A game where the team had every opportunity to put him in, and still nothing. Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, kept Sanders on the bench the entire time. No reps, no drive, no garbage time snaps. Just an empty helmet and a growing cloud of confusion hanging over the franchise. And now, what should have been a simple personnel decision has blown into a full-blown controversy, one that has media insiders, analysts, fans, and players openly questioning Stefanski's motives. It's not just about not playing Shedeur. It's why he wasn't played. And that's where this whole situation gets uglier by the day. Stefanski claims it's strategic, that the moment wasn't right, that they're sticking with the plan. But no one's buying that anymore, not when the team's up late in the game and still refuses to give their young quarterback meaningful reps. Not when Sanders is showing poise and instinct in practice. Not when the fans are chanting his name and he still doesn't take the field. Because this feels less like a development timeline and more like a power play. Multiple insiders have said it plainly. There's a growing belief that Stefanski is protecting something. Maybe his reputation, maybe his influence over the team dynamic, maybe just his job. The theory? That giving Sanders playing time puts too much at risk, not for the team, but for the coach. Because if Shedeur shines, if he shows even a glimpse of that franchise-caliber potential on the field, then Stefanski loses control of the narrative. The locker room shifts. The media pivots. The fans start demanding a new era, and maybe a new coaching staff to go with it. That's the pressure building in Cleveland right now. And it's not quiet. Fans are furious. Social media has erupted into a non-stop demand for answers. Stadium chants aren't subtle anymore. They're full-throated calls to play Shedeur now. Not next week. Not next year. Now. And it's not just outside voices. There are reports of locker room tensions. Players divided over the coaching direction. Some are frustrated that a clear talent is being sidelined for reasons that have little to do with football. That kind of internal stress, it doesn't stay hidden for long. This isn't a developmental decision. It's a control issue. And control is slipping fast. Shedeur Sanders isn't a mystery. He's not raw talent being hidden to avoid embarrassment. He's a capable, composed quarterback who has shown the tools necessary to grow into a franchise cornerstone. He's the kind of player you want to get reps, the kind of player you build around. But instead of using the Dolphins game, a prime opportunity, to let him take the field, the Browns buried him on the bench. And fans are supposed to believe that's good strategy? They're not. And frankly, they shouldn't. Because if this was about protecting Sanders from a tough matchup or easing him into the system, then why keep him sidelined when the game was already in hand? When there was nothing to lose and everything to gain by letting him throw a few passes? The answer, more and more people believe, is simple. It was never about the Dolphins. It was about Stefanski. The criticism is mounting, and it's not just reactionary hot takes. It's established analysts, former players, and media insiders who have started calling this what it is: a refusal to develop talent out of fear, out of ego, out of a desperate need to control the team's direction rather than adapt to its potential. And the result? A franchise in limbo. A locker room caught in the middle of a battle it didn't ask for. A fan base losing faith. A promising young quarterback sitting idle while teams around the league, and yes, there are teams watching, start licking their chops, waiting for Browns to mismanage this badly enough to make Sanders available. The trade talk isn't just noise. It's gaining traction. Other organizations are reportedly monitoring the situation closely, some even preparing to make calls if this continues. Because in today's NFL, you don't wait around for another team to develop the next breakout QB. You poach them before they figure out. And right now, Cleveland is acting like they have all the time in the world, like they can bench Shedeur for half a season, play politics, and still keep control of his future. But they're wrong. This is a franchise that's been burned before. The ghosts of failed QB experiments haunt the history books. And now, when they finally have a shot at building something sustainable, they're playing scared, playing small, acting like risk management is more important than progress. It's already cost them trust. The question is, how much more are they willing to lose? Because this situation has reached a point where there are no neutral observers. Everyone, fans, analysts, players, even rival front offices, is forming an opinion. And the louder it gets, the more pressure builds on Stefanski and the Browns' leadership to do something, to change something. The next few games aren't just about winning. They're about direction, identity, whether Cleveland wants to keep pretending they're protecting the future or actually start building toward it. Because right now they're doing neither. They're stuck in this cycle of vague coaching speak and wasted opportunities. And Shedeur? He's stuck too. Stuck in a system that drafted him, praised him, promoted him as the future, only to leave him frozen in time. And that window, it's closing. Every week that Sanders doesn't play, the path forward gets more complicated. The whispers about trade interest get louder. The locker room stress deepens. And fan trust? It fractures more. At a certain point, you can't fix that. You can't walk it back with a carefully worded statement or a mid-season QB swap when things start to collapse. You have to be proactive. You have to lead. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is silence. And silence speaks volumes. It says the team doesn't know what to do. It says leadership is prioritizing comfort over growth. It says they're more concerned about public perception than actual development. And it says that if nothing changes soon, this whole situation is going to explode in a way that'll make headlines for all the wrong reasons. If Sanders gets traded, it'll be the most damning indictment yet of the Browns' handling of young talent. If he stays and never gets a chance to show what he can do, that's an even worse story. A cautionary tale of a team that let fear dictate their future. Either way, something's got to give. And soon. Because Shedeur isn't going to sit forever. The fans aren't going to stay patient. And the team isn't going to keep pretending everything's fine when the tension is obvious from top to bottom. The question now is, will the Browns act before it's too late? Let us know what you think. Should Shedeur Sanders have played in that Dolphins game? Is Kevin Stefanski making a tactical decision, or just protecting himself? Should the Browns finally make a move, or risk losing one of the most promising QBs they've had in years? Drop your thoughts below. Hit like if the situation has you just as fired up, and share this with someone else following the Browns drama. Don't forget to subscribe, because with the way things are going, we're not even close to the final chapter of this quarterback saga. Let's not dance around it. The Cleveland Browns are standing on a cliff, and Kevin Stefanski is inching them closer to the edge with every decision. And at the center of all this, Shedeur Sanders, a young quarterback who hasn't thrown a single pass in a game that everyone agrees would have been the perfect moment to start his on-field development. What makes this controversy more than just the usual quarterback drama is the timing and the pattern, because this wasn't a high-pressure playoff game. This was a situation where you're clinging to a 3-point lead and praying for your defense to close it out. The Browns won that game against the Dolphins. It was a statement win. A clean, controlled performance. The exact kind of scenario where you give your young quarterback reps without risking anything. But Stefanski didn't do that. Not when the lead was safe. Not in the fourth quarter. Not even for one drive. Instead, he doubled down on the decision to keep Shedeur off the field. Not because of injury. Not because of discipline. Not even because Dillon Gabriel was lighting it up. Just because. No real explanation. No transparency. Just a vague shrug wrapped in a post-game quote about sticking to plan. And that's where this whole thing falls apart. Because what plan? What part of any rational development plan involves repeatedly benching your most promising quarterback when the game is already in hand? What part of leadership says no to growth opportunities because they might create a little discomfort? This isn't player development. This is damage control disguised as strategy. And now, the Browns are caught in their own web, one they've been spinning since they brought Sanders in and promised fans they were serious about building for the future. Because now that future is asking, when does it start? And the answer, according to this coaching staff, is apparently never. Look, it's one thing to be cautious with a rookie. No one's expecting Stefanski to throw Shedeur into a playoff-deciding game with 2 minutes left on the clock. But this wasn't that. This was literally the perfect time to let him get his feet wet against a quality defense in a controlled setting with no pressure to perform miracles. That opportunity came and went, and Stefanski let it slip on purpose. Why? That's the million-dollar question right now. Some insiders think it's ego. That Stefanski doesn't want to admit that his current system might be better suited to a different quarterback. That letting Sanders shine even for a moment would force a reevaluation he's not ready to have. Others think it's politics. That the front office is split on which direction to go. And Stefanski has tried to hold on to as much power as he can in the meantime. That this is less about Shedeur's readiness and more about who gets to say, I told you so when the season ends. But regardless of the reason, the result is the same. A quarterback who's being denied development for reasons that have nothing to do with football, and fans see it. They see a young player who's calm under pressure, who's shown playmaking ability, and who by all accounts is ready for the next step, but still can't get on the field. They see a coaching staff more interested in maintaining control than evolving the offense. They see leadership that's gone silent when asked to explain why they're wasting this kid's rookie season. And they're fed up. Chants for Shedeur aren't just social media noise anymore. They're echoing through the stadium. Every missed third down, every stalled drive, every moment Gabriel doesn't look like the answer. Those chants get louder. And if you think that doesn't affect the locker room, think again. Because these players, they're not dumb. They hear it. They talk. They know talent when they see it. And when decisions are being made that feel personal instead of practical, that undermines trust faster than any blown coverage ever could. Some players are reportedly starting to question the direction of the team, whether this is really about winning or just about surviving. And once that doubt creeps in, it spreads. It spreads to the offensive line, wondering who they're protecting next week. It spreads to receivers who want a chance to make plays with a quarterback that can extend drives. It spreads to defensive leaders asking why the coaching staff keeps playing scared with the one position that matters most. And all that internal tension, is a direct result of one decision: to keep Shedeur Sanders bench in a game where he should have been on the field. The Browns have created a mess. A quiet, simmering, slow burn of a meltdown that's now threatening to boil over. And the scariest part? They still haven't acknowledged it. There's been no clear communication from Stefanski about what the actual plan for Sanders is. No roadmap. No milestones. Just vague references to developing behind the scenes and learning the system. But the fans have heard that speech before. And they're not interested in waiting around for another quarterback to disappear behind excuses and mismanagement. Because that's the thing about Cleveland. This fan base remembers everything. They remember every hyped QB that was promised and never delivered. They remember every rebuild that was sold as the one. They remember what it's like to believe, only to watch the front office fumble it all away. And now, they see it happening again in real time. They see a quarterback with raw talent, composure, and high-level instincts being buried under a coaching philosophy that values control over courage. They see a coach making decisions that feel more about protecting himself than protecting the team's long-term success. And they're done being patient. So what happens next? If Stefanski sticks with his strategy, if he continues to bench Sanders in winnable games, if he keeps offering empty explanations, if he keeps letting fear dictate the depth chart, it's only going to get worse. The calls for change will get louder. The locker room will continue to fracture. And yes, the trade rumors will heat up. Because let's not forget, other teams want Shedeur Sanders. Teams that are ready to develop him. Teams that have a plan. Teams that don't see him as a threat to their system, but as the centerpiece of it. And if Sanders decides he wants out, if he asks for a trade because he's tired of waiting for a chance that clearly isn't coming in Cleveland, that's not just a bad look. That's a total indictment of the Browns' ability to manage talent. You don't come back from that. Not without consequences. So Stefanski has a choice. Keep holding the steering wheel tighter, or finally give the keys to the quarterback you've been hyping as part of the future. Because there's no hiding anymore. Everyone sees what's happening. Everyone knows what the right decision is. And every game you delay it, you risk losing the team, the fans, and the future. The silence from Berea is deafening. You got fans in open revolt. Analysts roasting the coaching decisions on national TV. A locker room reportedly on edge. And a young quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, whose name is on everyone's lips except the one voice that actually matters, Kevin Stefanski's. And that silence, that refusal to address the situation head-on, that is the answer. Because if there were a real plan, a long-term development arc, a timeline, a strategic rollout, the Browns would have said so. They would have calmed the fire with clarity. They would have stood up and said, here's why we're doing this, and here's when you can expect to see Sanders take the field. But they didn't, because they can't. Because the truth is this, there is no plan. There's just panic. There's a head coach managing the optics of a quarterback room instead of managing the growth of the player with the highest upside on the roster. There's a front office more concerned about not rocking the boat than steering it in the right direction. And there's a young QB watching the season slip away from the sidelines, not because he's not ready, but because the coach isn't. This is what a power struggle looks like when it's disguised as strategy. And everyone knows it now. The media has caught on. The fans have definitely caught on. And most importantly, the other 31 teams in the league are watching it unfold with interest. Some of them are already running the numbers, wondering if Cleveland might be short-sighted enough, stubborn enough, to actually let Shedeur hit the trade market. And make no mistake, if he does, it's over for the Browns. You don't come back from wasting a potential franchise quarterback because of internal ego wars. You don't get to spin it after he goes elsewhere and becomes a star. You don't get sympathy. You get laughed at again, and Cleveland's had enough of that. This is supposed to be the post-meltdown era, the post-turmoil rebuild. This was supposed to be the start of something. And what are we watching instead? A coaching staff that refuses to pivot. A team at odds with its fan base. A young player being held hostage by fear of change. And that fear, it's visible in every decision Stefanski makes right now. Every drive where Gabriel stays and despite the game being out of reach. In either direction. Every press conference where the question about Shedeur is dodged. Every week where the Browns opt for safe instead of smart. And let's be honest, how long can that last? How long until this team drops a must-win game, the offense sputters, and the questions turn into demands? Because here's the harsh reality. The Browns don't have the luxury of waiting anymore. The locker room can't take it. The fans won't take it. And Shedeur's not going to sit quietly through an entire season while other quarterbacks from his draft class get meaningful reps. And he doesn't even get a snap. At some point, he's going to want answers too. Not just from the coach, but from the franchise. Why draft me if you won't play me? Why promise development if you never give me the chance to develop? Why claim I'm the future if you won't even let me step into present? And if that conversation ever leaves the building, if Sanders or his camp publicly questions what's going on, the entire illusion collapses. Then it's not just a coaching issue. It's an organizational crisis. And honestly, that might already be happening behind the scenes. Because where there's smoke in the NFL, there's usually a fire. And the situation? It's not just smoky. It's billowing. So what's left? Stefanski either makes a change, owns it and reclaims a narrative, or he keeps doubling down and drags the team deeper into dysfunction. There is no third option anymore. The next game could be the tipping point. One more save, scared coaching decision, and an entire city might turn. And once that happens, once the support is gone, there's no getting it back. Not for the coach, not for the front office, not for the plan. So to the Browns, you've got your quarterback. He's sitting right there. You either give him the reins or prepare to lose everything you said you were building. To everyone still tuned in, let us know what you think. Should Shedeur finally get the start? Is this strategy or sabotage? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like if you're tired waiting, and make sure to subscribe. Because if this situation keeps unraveling, you won't want to miss what comes next. The meltdown's not over. It might just be getting started.